Just get me front page. Okay. Welcome everybody to the People Scrutiny meeting. It's Tuesday the 14th of July and we're in the Council Chamber in Usk. We're meeting today to discuss the homelessness update and to scrutinise the progress in preventing homelessness. And we've got with us officers from the housing team, and I'm hoping they will introduce themselves as they present their report. So I'm just going to go to the agenda. So have we got any apologies for absence?
Yes, Chair. I've got apologies from Councillor Jan Butler and also apologies from Councillor Simon Howarth, and he's been substituted today by Councillor Sue Riley.
Thank you, Hazel. Have we got any declarations of interest? If any sort of pop up during the rest of the meeting, we can do them as and when as well. Okay. Have we got anybody for the public open forum? We haven't. So we'll move on to number 4 on the agenda, which is the homelessness update and the scrutiny of the progress that we've Monmouthshire County Council have been doing in preventing homelessness. So I presume we're going to ask Cabinet Member Sarah Birch to introduce the report, or am I going to go to Ian? Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Chair, if I may. So I'd just like to thank you for the opportunity to reflect together about how far we've come in terms of the provision for homeless people in Monmouthshire. And I hope that when you've heard about it, you will join me in commending all the members of the team for making such impressive progress. This hasn't been a big bang change, but a process of incremental improvements. And if we look back to, I think, when we first came to scrutiny with the rapid rehousing plan in the past, we then had a large number of households in bed and breakfast, and we've gone from that situation to, I think, a very round number, 0. And the first aim was to stop using bed and breakfast for families with children and for young people under 18, and we achieved that some time ago and have now gone forward to end all of our block contracts for bed and breakfast. And they've been replaced by leased, shared and individual properties, by 7View and by purchase properties. So working to increase the quality and also to have a better spread of temporary accommodation across the county. And that's a better option for people concerned, but it's also a better option for the council. A big saving. And another success is the work to prevent people from becoming homeless. So that's always very much individual, because the reasons why people are threatened with homelessness are very individual. But in the vast majority of cases, particularly where they come to us early, people can be helped and are being helped to avoid homelessness, which again is better for them and better for the council's budget. And the areas where we now need to focus, and we are focusing, is speeding up the delivery of affordable housing, because people are still spending too long in temporary accommodation before they get a permanent tenancy. And there are still too many people in unsuitable or unaffordable homes who are waiting for social housing in Monmouthshire. But we're also progressing with the retendering of housing-related support, as previously agreed, reducing the number of contracts and focusing on outcomes and impact over simply the number of hours of support delivered. And that's working with those partner agencies that are so important to delivery in the county. And we know that we need more supported housing for people with complex needs and better integration with health services and other services. And as you see in the action plan, that is an area of work. Also, better integration with children's social care, so that care-experienced young people don't end up in the homelessness system, but are supported into adult life. And working on how we can ensure that young people at risk of homelessness are identified and supported earlier. And there, I think there is a continuum with the work that is being done in education, in our youth services and in social care to identify people at risk of potential homelessness early and try and prevent them being forced down that path. So I think as we move forward, we're in a good place for the implementation of the new Act and you've seen the action plan and milestones. And the Act very much makes homelessness and potential homelessness everybody's problem, in the same way that has been taken to safeguarding and to domestic abuse. You know, it is not a problem for one agency to solve on its own. It is an issue where every agency has a responsibility to ask, to identify and to take action. And that's very much the way that we have been working in Monmouthshire and continuing to work. And you see in the action plan the development of that. So with that, I would just like to say thank you to Becky and the team, and for all the great work that has been accomplished, and to hand over.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Morning, everybody.
Morning, Ian.
Hello, Chair, I've got, as we've discussed, I've got a couple of questions from the report, but I just wanted to ask a question based on some of the things that Councillor Birch just said. Would that be okay? Okay, thank you. Councillor Birch, I mean, the report is very encouraging, but Councillor Birch, you just said that people are too long in temporary accommodation. I just wanted to break, a quick sort of answer as to why and what we're doing about it, and how much is the delay in the RLDP affecting that?
Can I just ask whether that might be covered in the presentation, Ian?
A little bit.
A little bit, okay. I'll let Sarah say something there. Shall we go on to the presentation, then pick that up at the end, or do you want to?
I'm happy to
Okay.
answer.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Riley, I think there are two essential issues there. That we have a large number of people in temporary accommodation who have support needs, and we don't necessarily have the right accommodation for them. Overall, we do not have the number of vacancies in social housing coming forward. We don't have the volume of new social housing being delivered that I would like, and we are working on how we can unblock the pipeline and make increase the delivery where sites have already been identified. But yes, you are correct. Any delay in the RLDP does put at risk that future pipeline of sites coming forward.
Thank you.
Ian, do you want to introduce yourself and then present the report? Thank you.
Morning, everyone, again. Yeah, I'm Ian Bakewell, and I'm the Strategic Housing Manager for the Council, and the majority of housing services sit under myself. So thank you for allowing us to agenda a homeless update. As Councillor Birch has said, we believe that it is a good news story for not just the council, but obviously for people affected by homelessness in the county. So without further ado, I'll start. So I'm not going to go into the or the individual figures or anything, but in terms of how I've set this out, you're aware that we've got a rapid rehousing plan that we've been working on for a number of years, and there are 4 broad priorities that we've been working to. The first one is the prevention of homelessness, and wherever possible at the earliest opportunity, increasing the supply of affordable housing, and that's across the board, whether it's permanent, temporary, and in theory supported. The importance of housing support. We can provide a roof, but there's a lot of people that do need that assistance to maintain that roof and live independently. And you'll be aware that we've come from quite a challenging position when it comes to finances. So a big focus of the team is this continual quest to identify additional funding. So starting with homelessness and prevention, we can report that our homelessness applications are falling. They've been falling for a number of years, and that is an established trend which we've seen for several years now. And the relevance of that, obviously, it's important that we don't want a homeless application anyway, but the volume of applications that we're having in the past really did cause problems for the staff. They were having significant caseloads individually, and the issue was, with such a big caseload, that affected their ability to give quality time to those individual households. And probably the reality was they would focus on those in crisis, and that proactive prevention was more difficult. But as those caseloads reduce, it does make it easier for us to work with individuals, and wherever possible, we'll be working upstream up to 6 months. So there's wherever possible, if we can have a good lead-in time, we will. So on the back of that, our homeless prevention has remained consistently strong. It was dropped a tiny bit this year, but only very marginal, and that has been that's been really satisfying, because that's the job, really, to be preventing homelessness and supporting those difficult circumstances. We're making good strides with that. I think one of the things that I think is important to reflect on is it's not just about the housing options team delivering prevention. So it's a local authority responsibility. We ask our partners to work in that way as well. So we believe that the whole system is working more effectively when it comes to prevention. But in this context, the importance of family and friends can't be understated, and obviously the importance of social housing. We do still believe that presentations are still too high, although it is more manageable than it used to be. But the quest is obviously to continue to try and drive those presentations down. And probably one of our biggest challenges is that continual ability to access the private rented sector. You don't need me to tell you about, local market rents are high. We know landlords can be selective, and the general private rented stock is very difficult to access in Monmouthshire. So where we've not been able to prevent homelessness, and you'll appreciate there's varying circumstances where people come through, family exclusions, domestic abuse, for example, and people obviously presenting in crisis, and those in private rented who we've not been able to keep there. We obviously need to offer temporary accommodation. The duty that we give to people to advise that we've got a duty to provide accommodation. Again, similarly with homeless applications, that trend is down as well, and the figures are all going in the right direction. So that again has taken the pressure off the team to look for accommodation, to provide accommodation, and it is enabling the team to sit back a little bit. That's the wrong word, sit back, but be a little bit more proactive. It's far less reactive sort of situation, which is really helpful. Again, for everyone concerned. And as Councillor Birch has said, you know, one of our big wins has been the reduction of B&B. And as Councillor Birch said, we've got 0 in B&B as we sit here at the moment, which is just fantastic. So we've been on the 0 position now, probably for a few weeks. I'm not going to be able to sit here and say that won't change. We do expect there will be challenging individuals who we may not be able to place in our current accommodation. And, you know, we all know that we have unexpected events. The extreme heat, we needed to accommodate 2 people to get them off the street from a safety point of view. And of course so it's okay. Yeah, and of course, you know, we've got this risk of flooding hanging over us. So again, it may be that we may need to accommodate people in the flood situation. But anyway, it's a good position, and because of the numbers in B&B is down, we've got less people flowing from B&B into temporary accommodation. More people are moving on, and our number of temporary accommodations has gone down as well, which is good, and that is enabling us to be a bit more strategic with our temporary accommodation stock. No, that's all right. So, a number of years ago, you know, we needed every unit of accommodation we could get. And now we're in a position to be a little bit more selective, and it's enabling us actually to do some remodelling to get better quality accommodation, reduce the amount of shared accommodation we've got, and the committee will be aware there was a commitment from Cabinet that we would look to address the imbalance of temporary accommodation between the north and the south. So you'll remember that we'd got a bit too much in Chepstow, so we're looking to change that. So the key successes have been our ability to access private leased accommodation under our Monmouthshire letting scheme branding. You'll be aware that we opened 7 View last year, providing another 17 units of accommodation, and the team has had a lot of success with working with the RSLs and Welsh Government to both build and acquire permanent accommodation. So the one grant, particularly TACP, Transitional Accommodation Capital Programme grant, that's enabled the RSLs to buy quite a number of family accommodation units across the county, and that really has eaten into our the time families spend in temporary accommodation as well. So housing support now is our priority now for homelessness overall. As a council, we've obviously invested a lot in the actual homeless service, in accommodation, staffing. Now we feel the time is right to really start focusing on the housing support side of the business. And I think the key message I want to convey today is that, you know, we can provide a property, but keeping a person in that property or trying to prevent homelessness is still really important, but it's really challenging for higher needs individuals, and the housing support programme and the wider support is so important. So I think we're in a position where we've got quite a number in temporary accommodation, quite a few single people, and as Councillor Birch said, we made good inroads with younger people, but it's that older age group that's proving a bit more of a challenge. Mental health is a real need. That's a key need for the prevalence of that is significant, and quite a number of individuals have got high needs in that regard. But also substance misuse is very challenging and often comes together. And we've also had a bit of a spike with domestic abuse as well. So there's teams doing quite a bit of work on domestic abuse at the moment. We're heading for a recommissioning of the domestic abuse services later in the year. So, and this partly links with Councillor Riley's point about people being in temporary accommodation and people staying in temporary accommodation. What we're finding is that we've made really good inroads with family accommodation, but it's higher needs groups that are, I'll say, remaining behind or having to spend longer in temporary accommodation. What we're also finding, and this has been particularly insightful from Seven View, is people have got wider needs than housing support. It's been a real eye-opener, the number of people that have got physical health needs. And again, at Seven View, what we've found is that staff have got pulled into, I'll use the word support, supporting people with physical illnesses and physical conditions, and arguably you'd say, well, probably Seven View wasn't suitable for those people, so staff have got pulled into quite a focus on welfare and keeping people safe, and which takes it slightly outside of, obviously there's a duty of care to people, of course there is, but it does take the role of staff slightly outside of the role of Seven View, and I'll come back to that. The other thing that again I think it's important that the committee is aware of, we introduced a few years ago a housing support scheme called Housing First. Housing First is about really high needs people, and the theory behind Housing First is there is high levels of support, but you're allowed to fail, so there is you're not, in theory, you're not evicted when the first thing goes wrong. What we are finding is that we're relying on the RSLs to provide us with Housing First properties. Again, we've been well supported by all of the housing associations in that regard, but we've had some individuals moving into those accommodation, which it has been necessary to evict them due to the impact on the local neighbourhood and the local community. Again, need to recognise from a housing association perspective, they've got responsibilities towards their wider tenants. So, but that is a real area of challenge. We're not talking big numbers, but the resources that can go into those individuals can be considerable.
I'll ask a question. Do you have much problem where you might find an accommodation of somebody in a slightly different area of where they're living? And
Maureen, if you're going to ask a question, you need to put your mic on.
do you have a problem where if you move somebody into a slightly different area, they're not happy to go there because that's not where their friends and the people they know, but it probably would be the only accommodation you could supply at that time? Do you manage to get around that in some way?
Yeah, that's an ongoing challenge, and I'd say that's probably something that we would aspire to in terms of providing accommodation. You'd provide exactly what somebody wants in the area that they want, remembering that many of our applicants have got support networks, whether family, friends, other agencies. But yeah, it's unfortunately we do need to move people out of their home areas to provide temporary accommodation. We'll always try and help people move back as soon as possible, but it is an area of challenge. And again, it comes back to this imbalance of temporary accommodation that we've got across the county. I guess we'll probably never get to the stage where it's perfect, because you don't know who's going to present next. But yeah, something we're very mindful about, displacing people, particularly families, because obviously you take in potentially affecting schooling of children. So yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in terms of moving on to permanent accommodation, again, another success has been that the number of homeless households we've got on the housing register waiting for permanent accommodation has dropped significantly, and the relevance of homeless people being on the housing register is we have been accommodating a disproportionate number of homeless people over the years, and that unfortunately displaces other housing groups, those with medical conditions, those with welfare issues, those wanting to transfer. So it squeezes other groups, which we're very conscious of. We have been well supported again by the RSLs in terms of providing permanent accommodation. The number of properties that were provided to us last year did drop, but I've got an unfinished sentence there. It did drop last year, but I'm not too concerned about that, because it is allowing other groups to be accommodated. And I think the ratio, not there's any deliberate science behind it, but the ratio of those being accommodated compared with those coming through has not been problematic. So, but going back to Councillor Riley's point earlier, is our one area of challenge is there's certain groups that are beginning to stay longer in temporary accommodation, and impacting on our throughput. So what this table is demonstrating is that it's those needing one-bedroom accommodation that is our challenge. So it's a combination of the lack of one-bedroom accommodation in the county, and a proportion of those single people with higher needs, which we're trying to support them to move on a bit more quickly. So, a few headline conclusions. We definitely believe that the preventative work we've done over the years, in terms of trying to intervene a little bit more earlier and a bit more proactively, we genuinely do believe that is having a positive effect. Please don't ask me to prove it though, because we've got no way of substantiating it though. But we are positive about that. As I said, our B&B is zero as of today. That's obviously been facilitated by our presentations and the prevention as well. We know that we've been able to facilitate that because of the private leasing that we went through a phase of really trying to ramp up the number of properties that we were taking on. We're now on the trajectory of going down, but the opening of Seven View, as you'll be aware, made a big dent in our B&B use, and as I said, the capital programme that we work with the RSLs has made a big impact. So and again, that to be a strong emphasis going forward. Our portfolio of accommodation, I think it's fair to say, is, whilst overall, we're pleased with it and it has had an impact, it's not comprehensive. As I said, we've got shared housing that we would prefer not to have, albeit there may be a bit of a space for some level of shared housing, because I think some people do benefit from living with other people, but we haven't got a full set of supported housing, which is a real challenge, and basically means that we're accommodating people in less suitable accommodation, and our priority as we sit here is for complex and higher needs in individuals. In that regard, again, I can't emphasise enough the importance of partnership working and providing that wraparound support for individuals. We've got, as I said earlier, we can provide a roof, and we will provide a roof, and the team will provide support, but there's only so far that we can go, and some of the support that individuals need is specialist support that we're not in a position to provide. And I refer to the likes of substance misuse and mental health. So as I said earlier, we've got some individuals with real health challenges, and to have health colleagues at the table is going to be really important going forwards. Housing supply, again, is that as we sit here, we know, and we'll probably never get to the stage where we've got enough. But the stock that we've got, albeit it's growing all the time, we've got 3,000 on the housing register, 2,000 or so of those are classed as being in need, and the numbers of properties coming through just can't satisfy that need. So as Councillor Birch says, there's an ongoing priority to maximise out the programme, maximise the number of properties we deliver. We have got a good track record. We always spend our capital available to us, and it's looking at other opportunities, trying to squeeze even more out of the system with the RSL colleagues. So and we'll be meeting with them next week, aren't we, to nicely lean on them and again tell them we need more. And as I said, the evictions, the evictions that we have, in Housing First and Seven View, again, it's just underlying the importance of that all-round package of housing support for individuals. So the important bit, our next steps and priorities. Housing support grant, as I said earlier, that is now our priority for the service. So the big action for the team at the moment is the recommissioning of our entire programme. We've got too many projects, to be honest with you, which has implications in terms of project resilience, project management. There's quite a few. There's a number of projects that are just one person. So if somebody's on holiday or goes off sick, it impacts. So we're looking to reduce the programme in terms of the number of projects, but importantly, making sure we've got really good fit for purpose specifications that both align with homelessness and the council's wider priorities. So we've got a couple of weeks ago, we put out to tender our generic services and our temporary accommodation and rough sleeper services. So we'll be looking to shortlist for those in the next few weeks, and then the following priority will be domestic abuse, and we've started looking at that. We had a meeting last week whereby we're starting to look at developing a bit of a vision for domestic abuse services in the county, and see what we can improve on. As I said, continuing to support high needs applicants, so the key action, one of the big actions with that is working with Cabinet and supporting with Cabinet in terms of developing a bit of a business case and a proposal for a supported housing project, and looking to maximise and increase our involvement with health in the service. As I said, we're remodelling our temporary accommodation portfolio, so that will continue. And I say the aims being to increase quality, reduce the amount of shared housing, and address this north-south imbalance. We need more one-bedroom accommodation, so there's continual conversations going on about how we achieve that. And again, we want to support the town centre regeneration priority of the council. So wherever possible, can we get additional accommodation in those town centre areas, which again over the last year or so we've started making inroads on. One thing that I've not touched on as yet is you'll be aware that Welsh Government passed new homeless legislation a couple of months ago. So that is due to be implemented from September 27. The legislation continues to nudge local authorities down the route in terms of tackling homelessness. Brief, rare, and unrepeated is the vision. So that's the emphasis, and so there's going to be more legal duties around that. We're supportive of the vast majority of those as a team, and Becky will be leading, or Becky is leading on preparing for that new legislation. And again, there's a big emphasis on prevention. Again, as Councillor Birch referenced, young people is a key group of that. So can we anticipate potential risks of homelessness amongst young people? We've made reference to it in the report, but the plan was to bring a legislation-focused report to you in the autumn, when Becky's working quite closely with Welsh Government at the moment, and we need their steer in terms of how we go forward, and we'll know more about that over the next couple of months. And then lastly, partly related to the legislation, because the legislation does affect the housing register. So Welsh Government are looking to housing registers to play a more of a stronger part in terms of tackling homelessness. You'll be aware that we also review it periodically anyway to ensure it's fit for purpose and there's no anomalies crept in. So that's something that's going to occupy the team. Again, Becky will be very much involved with that. And then lastly, obviously we did have financial challenges, and I'm not going to sit here and say that there aren't any more financial challenges, albeit they've significantly improved. But it's something obviously we can't lose sight of. So the team will be continuing to look at how we can reduce, the cost to the service. The fact that we've got no bed and breakfast, or less bed and breakfast, shall I say, will make a big difference. But there are other areas of costs that we need to be mindful of. Two key areas: the leasing we do, because of the rents that we can pay. Because of the rents that we can charge clients, that's arbitrarily capped. So we're effectively subsidising the leased accommodation that we have, and we think there would be benefits of reviewing how we deliver repairs to our temporary accommodation. Again, partly with a view to trying to reduce costs. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. That's great. Before I open it up for questions from the committee, can I just say thank you for including the bit about homelessness legislation that's coming in autumn 27. I know that both Penny and I are both on the corporate parenting panel, and housing and homelessness, and what happens when sort of care experienced people leave foster care and sort of get into adulthood is a real big issue. And I'd quite like it if we could get some input from young people themselves when that comes back to scrutiny later on in the year, so that would be great. So thanks for that. And I also want to just sort of unpick a bit about what is happening. Is there joint commissioning with health that's going on at the moment to address some of the complex health needs? I mean, it seems, and I looked through the report, and you're doing an awful lot of training with your sort of frontline staff, but it's a big ask for those staff to take on something that should be, predominantly a health need. And then I'll open it up for the rest of the committee. Thank you.
Yeah, there's no specific joint commissioning with health at the moment, but we have extended the relationships and links that we've got with health. So one of the successes, albeit still in its infancy, is at Seven View. We've got a partnership with the Health Inclusion Service, and the Health Inclusion Services focuses on those minority groups that probably struggle to access and engage with health services. So that the Health Inclusion Service spends a fortnight at Seven View. They'll also do outreach from Seven View as well. So because we see them regularly, again, that's quite helpful to start having conversations and involve them in other things. Another area that we've started a conversation with is with a local GP surgery in Chepstow. They're classed as a homeless friendly GP service, and they get slightly additional funding to provide services to homeless people. So we're in the process of exploring links with that GP surgery, and whether we can do anything with something a little bit more joined up with Seven View as well. So that's pending, and myself and Jane Rogers as Chief Officer, we've been having conversations using Jane's network as to whether there's other parts of the health system that either myself or one of the team can access. And again, the focus continually being this the importance of wraparound support and high needs individuals.
Thank you, Ian. That's really helpful, because we all are aware that the life expectancy for people that have either been living rough or have experienced homelessness is a lot lower than the rest of the population. So it's really important that we can get those individuals some access to decent healthcare. So I see that Councillor Edwards has got his hand up. So if I take Councillor Edwards and then I'll take Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm assuming that Councillor Riley's questions have been answered from earlier first, or am I correct in saying that?
Well, I do have some questions. So long as I'm in the queue, that's fine, because I can't put my hand up on here. Thank you. Thanks,
Councillor Riley, I'll take you after Councillor Jones, if that's okay.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay, thanks again, Chair. And thanks, Councillor Birch and Ian, for taking us through this report and strategy this morning, especially you, Ian, for the engagement you've had with us Chepstow councillors over the last couple of years. I very much appreciate that. Looking at the report, I've just got a few things I want to ask or raise. And the report highlights a reduction in homelessness applications, like a reduction of over a fifth, I think, over the last 3 years. How confident are we that this reflects a genuine reduction in homelessness rather than changes in reporting, eligibility, or any of the recording practices that we use? Also wondering how many households return to the council as homeless within 12 to 24 months after you've successfully prevented it by the intervention. And the report also mentions that this proposal of a young person's housing group. I'm just wondering when it will be operational and what outcomes will members expect to see within its first year. And finally, looking at the strategy, because you've touched on this in terms of the new policy from Welsh Government and the pressures that you're getting from Welsh Government to make improvements in this area. And of course, the strategy recognises that Monmouthshire receives one of the lowest housing support grant allocations in Wales. I'm wondering what, you've touched on it, but what lobbying strategy is in place to secure a fairer funding settlement rather than just sort of simply adapting our services to the financial constraints that we have. Thank you.
Thanks for those. So we're working my way through those questions. How confident are we around the need levels? We're taking a level of confidence because we believe we've got an established trend. What we don't know is when that is likely to bottom out. It will eventually level out at some point. But I can assure you that there's no changes in recording practice or anything like that. And probably actually I'd say it's probably the other way. We're probably a lot more detailed. We collect a lot more information than we ever used to. So I think our knowledge of the service is quite forensic, really. So yeah, I think it's just at that point when things do start to level out. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sorry, it's Becky. Rebecca Cresswell. I'm the Strategic Homelessness Transformation Coordinator. I was just going to kind of say the same as Ian, really, which is our practices of data recording haven't changed in that time, and our processes also have not changed in that time. So really, there's been quite a consistency. So you would assume that they are in real terms going down. What we don't know is how the new legislation may affect presentations and applications going forward from 2027. So at the moment they're trending downwards, but we don't know, we can't anticipate what the impact of legislation change will be.
Cool. You queried about returning and repeat homelessness, and I can't give you that figure as I sit here, but it does happen. And we do, particularly among a number of single people that will have potentially been evicted, and then we pick them up again. So we can furnish you with that figure, and and give you a little bit more context around it. It is one of those areas of challenge, actually, because what I will say is that the expectation from Welsh Government and the underlying policy is we are giving people repeat chance. It's not, you're not out at the first problem, and the time and the chances that we give individuals is considerable. We'll try and move somebody before they're evicted, but there comes a point on occasions where it's impossible to avoid that, and it's not unusual for some people to represent at a later date. But I'll come back to you with one of us will come back to you with that figure. Over to Becky.
So the young person's housing group. So that's in its infancy. It has stalled a little bit, but it's still very much on the agenda, and it is born out of some of the legislation changes that are coming our way for both housing and for social care. So there is to be a joint protocol between homelessness or housing and social care in relation to young people, as in 16, 17-year-olds homeless or threatened with homelessness, and also the prohibition of care leavers accessing homelessness route for when they leave care. So it's in its infancy, but I would anticipate in the first year we are hoping to come together with social care colleagues to at least formulate some sort of protocol or draft protocol. We're also hoping to put forward models of ways of working. The Welsh Government have been quite clear about some of the models that are already in operation in other parts of Wales between housing and social care for children leaving care. So we will be looking at those models, and if we can take any forward as a group. So that's kind of what we'll be doing in our first year. It's going to be a phased implementation from 2027, so we're not necessarily anticipating that this will be something that will be needed to be in action as soon as that, but we're hoping to have some plans in place to slowly implement over that course of that time.
And then your last question about lobbying Welsh Government in respect of additional resources and funding. I can assure you that is a regular conversation, certainly at an officer level when we meet with Welsh Government. There are established networks that have been in place with Welsh Government since they introduced the current housing policy. There's a number of networks at various levels covering various themes. Becky attended a prison-themed network last week, and it is a continual conversation with Welsh Government that, as an authority, we will need additional funding to deliver a lot of their aspirations. And to be fair to Welsh Government, we have been supported every year, since COVID, and in previous years when we've had previous legislation, it has brought additional funding, but it is an area of challenge. A good example, Becky was telling me this morning that at the prison meeting, there's a conversation about, there's an expectation now that we will go into prisons to provide advice. So there's two levels of advice, either high level advice or individual personal assessment advice. Obviously the personal assessment advice, if we ended up having to do that would be more resource intensive than going and providing general advice. So yeah, these conversations are going on all the time about our needs.
Councillor Edwards, do you want to come back?
And that's fine, thank you. I do have some further questions, but I'll let my councillor colleagues come in first.
Sorry, I forgot to put the mic on. Can I ask Penny to ask her questions now?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ian. Once again, a really good report, very thorough, and you know, it's quite hard to pick out bits to query, but I have got a couple of questions. I've asked this before, so you know, it's the same old. Are you looking at old properties? What is happening to the old properties in Monmouthshire that have lain dormant and derelict for years? And you know, we could all name some. Perhaps each councillor could be asked to provide some, you know, knowledge of the ones in their particular ward, because these have lain dormant for 20 years or more. Some of the ones I'm talking about. So why aren't we doing something about it when they're within a building area, when they could be utilized perhaps for I don't know, affordable housing? I mean, I've got one in my particular ward in Raglan itself, but that wasn't housing, so I won't go down that road. But there are lots of properties, and really we should be utilizing them. It makes me angry every time I go past. Secondly, Seven View, I don't quite understand. Are they a permanent accommodation, or are they temporary? Are they a stepping stone? And if so, how long will they? Is it about 18 months, you know, to 2 years that they're expected to stay, and then they go on to another area? I'd just like to know a little more about that. And then thirdly, what happened to the spare bedroom project? Did that ever come to fruition? You know, at one stage we were all asked if we had a spare bedroom and we could accommodate somebody. Not so, I didn't think it was a particularly good idea, but you know, for some older people who lived in a large premises, it might have been. But I just wondered if that came to fruition, and if it has helped you accommodate those who are homeless. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you for those questions. So working through them again individually, there's a well-established and regular routine between council tax, environmental health, and housing in respect of empty homes. We as a team we get notified of those empty homes, and then we seek to engage positively with those individual owners. What we have found is that running alongside that, you'd be aware that the council introduced the empty homes premium. So that you've got a twin track of that running, and I know between the two focuses of activity, that has brought the numbers of empty homes down significantly. I haven't got the figures with me, but again, I can update you on the last lot of figures that we've got. I will accept your point about there's a number of properties that are a bit of a challenge. I personally would like to get into that space where we're really tackling those individual properties. I guess it probably is quite a challenge for the authority as we sit here, because those sort of projects probably don't come, you know, they need to be resourced. There isn't a budget actually sat there at the moment, so the focus does tend to be on positive engagement as opposed to punitive action. But there may be, I would accept there's probably one or two that would be good to get into those that sort of focus.
Yes, if I can chip in, there are almost two issues there. There are empty homes, which are on the council tax register as empty properties. A surprising number of them are, you will discover there are in probate or are being redeveloped or are being sold in some way, and they're therefore under some kind of action. I'm really glad that we've been able to see the number of empty homes actually coming down. But then there's the other area of properties which are often redundant sites, commercial buildings, and there I think there's great work being done by the registered social landlords who are now, I think, much more adventurous in terms of their willingness to look at some of those more difficult sites. And there are a number of projects coming through, which I'm sure planning colleagues will be seeing shortly.
And just to add to that, when we set out with our current empty homes approach, part of it, the rationale was, could we engage with private landlords to help us with additional homeless accommodation, or, as you say, affordable housing? The reality is that hasn't panned out. I was going to say at all, but in terms of the extent, the numbers of properties that we've been able to bring forward for homelessness or social housing use has been minimal. And the reality is those properties that do come back into use is the private sector. We've got a we've got an empty homes grant that we facilitate, and again, the applications that we're getting for that are not for properties that we would associate with for meeting housing need. They tend to be the larger, more expensive properties, and we have said to Welsh Government that it probably be helpful to tweak the terms and conditions so that the funding is a little bit more targeted. You've asked whether Seven View is temporary or permanent. It's most definitely temporary, but people can remain there as long as they need to. But the goal is that we are always seeking to move people on, and it's not necessarily being about completely tenant ready for move on. So it's working together with the RSLs and support agencies to facilitate moves whenever possible. But as I said earlier, the reality is some of those individuals does take a little time for them to be ready to move on. And your last question about the spare bedroom project, yes, you're right that we had I can't remember what we called it now, but yeah, a number of years ago we identified a bit of funding to develop a project to identify people that had got empty bedrooms and would they be willing to take in a lodger, and we employed two part-time individuals to engage with people in the community that had a spare bedroom. The reality was that the level of success from that was absolutely minimal. I think we, if I remember rightly, possibly only managed to accommodate 2 people. One actually was quite successful. It was quite a long-term placement. But the reality was that it was a housing option that didn't bring much to the table. So we didn't continue with that.
Penny, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I've got a lawnmower. You can probably hear it. I'm sorry, coming through the window. Can I just ask, could we put names forward of properties that have been literally 20, 30 years commercial, that are just left to rot and are, could really be utilised because they got a bit of land with them, some of them. Could we put their names forward to anybody, and if so, to whom do we write?
Probably the main person that would be. You can put them through to me, but you've got Daniel Fordham, who deals with town centre regeneration. So Daniel does deal with empty properties in town centres. But you can share any of them with us, and we can, because obviously we're interested.
Thank you, and I'll CC you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Penny. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all. I just wanted to acknowledge something that you said, Ian, about we will never have enough accommodation. And without doubt, as with the NHS and social care, the more solutions you provide, the more need you'll attract. But I don't think that's a reason to not provide, obviously. I've had a complaint, which I need to be very clear, is not directly making allegations against Seven View residents, but there does seem to be an increased level of crime and antisocial behaviour in my ward, and people are starting to say they think it's related to Seven View. So I've got a number of questions of a resident, is basically what increased security or monitoring measures are being put in place to deter antisocial behaviour and crime in the neighbourhood, and how are the council and local police working together to address the sudden spike in thefts and antisocial behaviour. And it's making people very nervous. People in the night, I've got 4:45 quoted here, looking in through windows and things, and drunkenness and drug use, etc. They are not saying that it is people from Seven View, but it is raising concerns. So I just wanted to, and then in contradiction, I'm going to be asking you, if people in Housing First or people are being evicted at the very last option, what happens to them? When you evict them, where do they go? And whose responsibility do they become, if anybody's? The other question I wanted to ask is, what's our relationship with South Gloucester? Because I've got a resident who has a huge number of family vulnerabilities, has 2 support workers, has a 3-bedroom property in my ward, but is assessed as needing to be in South Gloucester, which is obviously a house we could do with, but also it would meet her needs. And I just wondered what links or what we could do, because there has been a lot of attempts to get South Gloucester, and this person is quite high on South Gloucester list. And I'm just wondering what we can do to support that tenant who has systemic support in South Gloucester. Is that something we could discuss? Sorry, I have to keep changing my glasses. I can't see down there. And one other something that came out of something that you just said, Ian, was they're going into prisons. So what is the local connection assessment? What, if somebody is in prison and is homeless, what makes them connected to? Is it something that they were from Chepstow or from Monmouthshire when they went into prison, or that they have family? Or what is our connection to them? Thank you.
Thank you for those. So starting with Seven View, I think it's important that the committee is aware that before Seven View opened, we had use of certainly one B&B establishment in Chepstow town centre, and that was a presence that had been there since probably 2020, 2021. So when we opened Seven View, all we did was move 17 people from one building to another. So the bed and breakfast that we used was very very supportive of the council, and enabled us to accommodate people that we might otherwise have struggled with. And so it was literally we closed that B&B and then moved people into Seven View. I believe that the visibility of Seven View is a lot more than the B&B that we used, because the sort of challenges that we experience, that we have experienced now, was no different to the challenges that we had before. So I'm not sitting here saying that it's completely incident free, because there have been incidents where we've had complaints about, well, we've had generic complaints and we've had specific complaints. Some have been fair, some have not been fair, and I think I think that the challenge for us as an authority is where does our responsibility stop and start? My job, our job, is to accommodate homeless people and support them, help them move on. We are not the police. We can't control people. So when you make reference to somebody possibly being in Bulwark, that is, that's a police matter and not a matter for for us or Seven View. That said, we do recognise that there are rumblings of the nature that you've described, and really that takes us on to the work that we are doing both in the building and the relationships that we've got elsewhere. So you're aware that we've got 24-hour security in the building. We do provide support to those individuals. So if there's situations that arise outside of let's call it the parameters of Seven View, those support staff will engage with those individual residents and have those discussions, make them aware about behaviour and perception and impact on other people. But the vast majority of issues that get raised with us, there's no confirmation that it is actually a resident of Seven View. So it's just this perception. It's because we've opened Seven View in the area. So in addition to the security measures that we've got on site, and those security measures, I will say, do extend down to the bottom of Regent's Way. So we've got cameras there, and the security will patrol those areas. But beyond there, it falls outside of our remit. But we are working very, very closely with the police concerning Seven View, and again working together to share intelligence, deal with issues, etc., etc. Interesting feedback from the police is obviously they will do things, but they've also got their own challenges. Obviously, they're short-staffed as we can be sometimes, and they're also very reliant on the courts. Again, one thing they said that what's the phrase? People aren't on remand for very long. So whether it's anything to do with us or not, but that's the reality. There's that perception which we're very mindful of. We'll do anything, whatever, to try and quash that, that sort of perception. Evictions, where do evictions go? I think that takes us into two areas of territory. We've got our legal duties, but we've also got our moral duties. Obviously, we endeavour to be a moral service. We endeavour to be a kind service. But there does come a point, well, how much do we, where's the line? Where's the line? And that's the reality, that difficult decisions have to be made about whether we have got a duty or whether we retain a duty to some people. As I said earlier, we don't give up a duty lightly, absolutely not, because we know as well there is a ripple effect. So if we evict somebody, there is a wider cost, there is a wider implication. And the reality is some of those evictions do go on to sleep rough. And, we are very, very mindful of that. And but I say the context is we're trying to keep other people safe. We're trying to give people that quiet enjoyment of their property. So we've got a duty of care to them. We've got a duty of care to the buildings. We've got a duty of care to neighbours and communities. But the reality is, individuals have to go somewhere, and unfortunately, obviously, some people will stick around and end up sleeping rough. They do continue to get support though, so they are, they're not not completely abandoned. There's regular support going in through the Assertive Outreach Service. South Gloucestershire, we probably don't have particularly strong links with South Gloucestershire, but nevertheless, if there's an individual that wants support and assistance to move to South Gloucestershire, give us the name and address, and we'll happily engage with South Gloucestershire to pick that up. And then lastly, you queried about prisons, and I'm going to hand over to Becky as the prison expert.
I didn't quite go that far. So the new legislation coming in makes it explicitly clear that the local authority has a duty to provide anybody within its borders, with housing advice, and that includes people in secure estates. So in Monmouthshire we have 2 secure estates within our border. So essentially, it's not necessarily about local connection, it's about, because local connection will remain, so prisoners coming out of custody, wherever they come out from, they will still be tested for local connection before when we take an application. It's about going into the secure estates and providing homelessness advice. There are, I think, 4 or 5 of us in Wales that have secure estates in our remit. So it's the Welsh Government are looking to us to provide housing advice on site to people in those secure estates.
Can I just ask then, because we obviously have one particular prison holding vulnerable, is it Rule 67 prisoners? What do we do about them then?
So we would just give advice, housing related advice. So anybody who's in a prison, who's in a secure estate, regardless of vulnerability or anything else, if they need housing related advice, we would provide that advice. We wouldn't necessarily take an application of homelessness. So if they had a local connection somewhere else, because they've been put there for a specific reason, with that advice would be to approach their local connection authority.
If they were sex offenders, that's what I'm referring to really. What would we have in place to protect local people?
There are, as Becky says, any cohort, regardless of the offence, will be the responsibility of the local authorities that they've got a local connection to. So we're expecting our role to be very much supporting neighbouring and other local authorities across Wales. But in terms of protecting and supporting communities, obviously there is risk, on some offenders, and there's a lot of measures in place to manage individuals, through police, probation, and different arms of the police, and obviously local authorities may or may not have a role in assisting with that. So there is a framework around that, providing that protection, if you like, and we're a small part of that framework.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Can I move on to Councillor Stevens? Maria?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. And I'd like to say, reading that report, I've learned so much from it about all homelessness and housing. It's been a real learning curve. Thank you. But I was reading a recent report from the House Builders Federation. They state that social landlords, private sector companies, have said it currently takes too long to get permission to develop more housing for homelessness and social housing. And that the Wales planning system needs an overhaul in order to get more housing for the local authorities. And an example of that is 10 years ago, we had a consultation in Caldicot about social housing on Woodstock Way. And that's 10 years ago. And now, obviously, the building have started, which is going to be fantastic. And I understand they're going to be 1-bedroom apartments and up to 3-bedroom houses. That's my one question. And the other question is, if people are homeless and sleeping rough or sofa surfing, how do they contact MHA or the local authority? And how do you collate the numbers of homelessness? Because there could be a lot of people out there that don't know how to register as being homeless, especially thinking of sofa surfers. They might think they're comfy and they've got a lovely place to sleep, but they're actually homeless. So, yeah, that's my second question. Thank you.
Well, we certainly share your frustration about the time it takes schemes to come to fruition. And that's a regular conversation, isn't it? So we are, everybody's mindful of it. Welsh Government are mindful of it. I know planning are mindful of it. The Cabinet are mindful of it. And us as a team are very mindful. So there's a lot of time and effort and measures that we're always looking to do to reduce the time it takes to deliver a project. Some of the recent changes. Councillor Birch organised a meeting a few months ago to get all stakeholders together to say, right, what more can we do? Down to little procedural things from we meet regularly with planning, to discuss cases, but then we meet separately with the RSLs, and then we've met separately with the flood team. But now what we're doing, we're changing practice to be, sit down more often, together, as a little measure. Do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think it is a shared frustration. There are issues in terms of some sites, in terms of delivery, around the availability of contractors and cost of materials, cost escalating. There was a very worthwhile piece of work done under the last Welsh Government, the Housing Delivery Task Force, I think it was called. I may be getting that slightly wrong, but that was what it was doing. Really identifying across Wales what some of those obstacles were and making recommendations. And we've been implementing, along with colleagues in other local authorities, those recommendations, which are about seeing the delivery of affordable housing as very much a vital shared endeavour for the housing associations, for communities, the contractors, and all departments of the council, really working together to ensure that by the time an application comes to planning, all the issues with regard to community concerns around flooding, around active travel, around highways, traffic and parking, air quality, any of those environmental impact, any of those concerns have been resolved at that design stage, and we can hopefully give it the thumbs up that I know you would all want, and the funding to be in place so that the housing associations are in a position to build it and that they have the capacity to actually get that on site and construct it as quickly as possible. Because, you know, I think, as Councillor Jones has said, well, it's all frustration to everybody that there are sites around the county which could be homes that are much needed for people to live in. So shortening the time from which we go from eyesore to nice front doors is, I think, everybody's project.
Oh, thank you for that explanation, Councillor Birch. Thank you.
And then your other question was about how do we engage with rough sleepers and sofa surfers and ensuring that they know what options are available and how they can access them. So I can't sit here and definitively and say that everybody knows everything and that we are in touch with everybody. I guess really we don't know what we don't know, but we do have an assertive outreach service that's delivered by Llamai. And they're regularly out and about engaging with rough sleepers. So if we get reports of rough sleepers, we refer it to them and they'll go looking for those individuals. Their caseload includes sofa surfers as well. And obviously from a service perspective, it's all an ongoing priority to make the service as accessible as possible, and people know what to do and where to go. But certainly the focus of that advice and information is through Llamai. Do you want to?
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to add. So trying to share our message of prevention is a bit of a challenge. But we have taken steps to try and get our messaging out as much as possible. As Ian says, we don't know people we don't know about, but we have tried to get the message out through different routes. So we've overhauled our website, for example, so that should be easier for people to follow and to have a look at when they maybe should approach us. But we've also given training and talks to other community groups. So myself and a colleague went to the Citizens Advice Bureau not that long ago, and we talked about the homelessness process and trying to encourage people to signpost anybody they see that they felt might be at risk to us. Myself and another colleague delivered training to social care colleagues the other day, so we're trying to get people internally and externally aware of what we can do, what is on offer, and to send people they think might have a housing issue, not even homelessness, but might have a housing issue to us as soon as they can. It's an ongoing battle, but bit by bit we're getting there, I think.
Oh,
I think if there are two messages that...
Sorry. I was just going to say thank you very much for your responses. That's allayed some of my questions.
Thank you. And I was just going to say, if there are two messages that we could get out into the community, picking up on Councillor Riley's point on antisocial behaviour, that if you experience or observe or are concerned about antisocial behaviour, to phone the police and make a report. The police and police and our community safety teams work very closely together. And if you have become aware of that somebody is insecurely housed or worried about their housing situation or sofa surfing or at risk of getting kicked out, then encourage them to either go into one of our hubs or contact the housing options team by email or any other way.
Thanks for that. Can I bring in Councillor Graucott now, please?
Thank you, Chair. I have to say it's looking back over quite a few years now. I've shared sessions like this one with Ian Bakewell and his colleagues, and Ian mentioned the moral dimension to his work with homelessness, and I was really pleased to hear that, because when you work as a local authority worker, sometimes it's easy to forget that human moral dimension to the work that we do. And he, over the years, excuse me, will have heard many stories, and those of us who are local councillors will have met many people with stories of lives that would make you weep. And to have a job like that and to accept the responsibilities for providing homes and places of safety within our community is one of the most moral jobs I think that anybody could do. And I would never ever want to put words into Ian's mouth, but as I say, I've sat in many meetings in this room with him, and to be honest, Chair, I could have left in tears at some of the stories that I hear of people's lives and the work of people like our homelessness team in trying to resolve human difficulty at times when the resources weren't there, when things were very difficult. And I'd like to add my congratulations on the quality of this report, because I think whichever indicator you look at, it's moving in the right direction. And that scourge of bed and breakfast accommodation, for example, hearty congratulations on the work that you've done to diminish and hopefully end people being forced into bed and breakfast when they find themselves with no permanent accommodation, often through no fault of their own. Now, I would like to raise one specific point with Ian, and this is about a premises that we've talked of several times over the years, and that is in Abergavenny, the former nunnery, and it became an outdoor residential building for Kensington and Chelsea local authority. A big building already set out as a residential facility. And I can remember 5 years or more ago in talking to you about this building. And at that point, it was still in a very reasonable condition. Since then, it's become target practice for the local kids with air pistols, and most of the glass has now gone. And so we have a large residential listed building that is going to pot. And in terms of addressing those people who are still looking for your service, where are we? Because I know that we have started acquiring properties, and some of those have been very successful. What about that one? And wouldn't that be an ideal property? Thanks.
Oh, beg your pardon. In terms of the property that you're making reference to, this has been an area of frustration for us all, and I can remember the conversations you and I have had around that, and that obviously that little stretch of road. It would be great to refurb the whole block, really, wouldn't it? But I can't give you the detail, but what I can say that there has been a bit of refreshed movement on that property. There is work going on through my strategy colleagues who are working with I can't remember which one it is. It's probably heading one of the RSLs about a proposal. So that's a relatively recent upturn. I say it has been fraught with various types of frustrations over quite a number of years around ownership, and ownership's probably been the one of the challenges. But yeah, a little bit of renewed hope as we sit here at the moment. So fingers crossed that will go somewhere. So, but it's early days.
Martin, did you want to come back on anything?
No, just a comment that answer is typical of what I have come to expect from Ian. Other people would be in tears, Ian, saying, let's hope we can get something from this. So congratulations, I have my fingers tightly crossed, Ian.
We'll all wait and see what happens. Okay. So can I bring Councillor Edwards back in? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask some further questions, but I thought I'd leave it until the end, really, because considering how much and how often Seven View has been mentioned during this meeting, I guessed that Ian would be covering certain bits throughout. And thanks, Ian, for clarifying the setup to other members. I'm sure you wouldn't go against me saying that the whole setup in the first place was a little bit controversial, but I'm very pleased to say and to thank you as well for the engagement that you had with local councillors and residents at the time, which made it a lot more easier for us all, really. But looking back on it, I just wanted to mention and ask you really about sort of what ongoing engagement arrangements are now in place with residents living close to Seven View to ensure that their concerns are always heard and acted upon. You touched on it a little bit. And considering the close proximity to residents, do you think that the council should establish some kind of formal residents liaison group or community forum for Seven View? And if not, why not? And you also touched on the sort of monitoring aspect of things that go on. I just wanted to know how the council is monitoring the impact of Seven View on the surrounding neighbourhood. Obviously, without, you mentioned, I think, the Councillor Riley, that activities or possible activities to go on in Bulwark, on the town centre, is outside the remit of Seven View. But I'm talking about monitoring activities of the actual complex and the immediate vicinity. And looking forward, because you have mentioned about Chepstow being a little bit top heavy in terms of homelessness provision, and you're looking at other towns. So looking forward, as Seven View you now regard as an established part of the homelessness strategy, what lessons have been learned and would influence the location or design of any future supported accommodation? Thank you.
Again, hopefully I've captured all of your questions. So I think the start of a 10 really, in terms of your query about Seven View as a model, is that obviously we provide support to those individuals through 2 full-time officers. Now, what we envisage and still the plan is that the model for Seven View would be far more than just having support sessions with their support officer. So the vision and the goal is that we will have a range of activities that are constructive, meaningful, and engaging for the residents. I will say that that's probably taken a little bit more challenging perhaps than I envisaged. It is very busy at Seven View. It is the staff there are very well occupied, and part of the remit of those officers is to identify additional activities beyond the service. So, and ideally, so you're bringing in complementary support of some sort. So we did engage with is it Kaleidoscope? I can't remember what it's called. No, the cooking. Multiply, yeah. The Multiply project, which I'm not going to pretend I know loads about, but the Multiply project, which I think comes through Adult Ed, was coming into Seven View to do cooking with the residents. So that was great. There was a bit of numeracy as well, numeracy and literacy through that. But the funding ended. But I believe I did hear the other day that the signs of that possibly being reinstated or something similar reinstated. So I don't know the actual detail, but that was very disappointing when the initial matter dropped. But I say hopefully it's going to sit up again. We now have regular meetings with the residents, so they've been operating now for a few months, and again it's trying to get that constructive, positive, proactive dialogue. You know, at the end of the day, it's their home. What do the residents want from that? We've got the keep calling it the financial inclusion service, the health inclusion service. As I said, they've now got a regular presence, and the team have now they've been engaging with one of the support agencies who've got a community development arm, and they are due to come into Seven View to provide additional services alongside their support. We would love there to be, and we think there's really a great opportunity for a gardening. There's good grounds there, and it lends itself to getting a project off the ground. To provide a bit of therapy, but also that distraction. Positive activity. I was really surprised how difficult setting up a gardening project has been. We can't do it ourselves. We would need somebody to come in and support us and help us that. But there's a seed of an opportunity there, which the team are working on. Is there anything else I've missed? No. So and obviously, we'll continue to look for opportunities, to add to that and develop it. And I say it is at its infancy at the moment, but there is something that we are keen to further develop. In terms of monitoring, we do have a monitoring framework for Seven View. So I would be able to tell you again, I haven't got it here, but information about residents coming and going, and that includes complaints, which we monitor with the police. And as I say, we did have a spike of complaints, probably up until going towards Christmas. But since Christmas, it's been relatively low level. So as I sit here, I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but again, we can come back to you if needs be. You've suggested about a community forum. Personally, I'm of the view that our door is open. Sounds a bit of a cliche, but our door is open to the residents and to any neighbouring business. We're always happy to speak to people, and we'll speak to people, and if there's scope to involve other people, again, we wouldn't necessarily be be close to that. But again, got to remember here, this is the home of this is people's home. 17 people live there as their current home, and we need to be respectful of that. But that said, we do not absolutely want the project to impact on anybody or the neighbourhood at all, and me and the team will do everything and anything to mitigate against that. And lastly, what lessons have we learnt? We've learnt loads. I will say that there's things that we're doing now that we weren't doing at the beginning. We have changed lots. One of the things that we have changed was how we manage the housing support. So when the scheme was set up, we were managing. We had one manager managing the housing support, and another manager managing the housing management, so the building really. That matrix management wasn't effective as we hoped, so we've changed that, and we've got one stream of management, and there's lots of other things that probably more procedural that we've changed. Probably quite low level routine things, and I include the security and responding to complaints as part of that. There was quite a bit of change that we implemented right at the very beginning. Your point about the suitability of that building, again, I guess it's probably very, very subjective in terms of the building itself. It's obviously the best resource that I've ever worked with in Monmouthshire for homeless people because of its size, its layout, and even its location really in terms of the centre of town. I think the challenge that we have, and that challenge applies to any accommodation, whether it's this or any other, wherever you put it, is it the right place? And obviously you're aware through the planning process that there will be developments built which receive objections and challenges, and I don't think Seven View has been any different in that. But the reality is we've got legal and moral homeless duties, and they need to live somewhere. And my experience tells me that wherever we accommodate people, we will get challenges of some shape or form. Hope that's answered your questions.
Councillor Edwards?
Yes, thank you, Ian. Can I just clarify one thing though? You mentioned that obviously you think there's no need for a sort of formal setup at the moment, but you mentioned that you've recently been engaging with residents. I'm assuming that you mean sort of on an ad hoc basis. In other words, if there's an issue, there's an opportunity there for them to sort of communicate with the Seven View staff. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I mean we've got proactive arrangements in terms of a local business that we've been supporting or trying to be responsive to. So that's a proactive arrangement where there's formal communications and links, direct links to that business. And I say they are proactive as opposed to reactive. The other, in terms of residents generally, yes, it probably is a reactive scenario. And obviously I don't want to downplay or minimise any complaints or any concerns, but the level of contact that we've had over the last 6 months is relatively low. So for me to set up something, I don't feel that would be. I don't feel it's necessary personally. But I say that said, the communication channels, we want them to be open, and people feel that they can contact us.
Thank you, Ian. I just wanted to clarify that clearly for residents. That's all. I know how hard you work on this, and I know how quick you respond to emails. In fact, if there was some kind of council award for quick response every year, you'd certainly be a main contender for that, I would say. So thank you for everything you do anyway. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. I'm going to bring in Councillor Crook, and then I can see Penny's got a hand up afterwards. So, Councillor Crook.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. May I say first, Ian, what an excellent report. It's been one of my privileges to adopt going forward since I've been with the council. A couple of things that really concern me, but I just wondered whether it's just help and not a criticism. If you look at 3.28, the level of need with temporary accommodation has intensified significantly, and you say in your homeless report that significant caseloads and then remodelling going on for quality accommodation, which all adds to extra work, as I see, and then going into prisons. But then, if you look at your priorities, I just wondered whether it's quite a big ask of you and of your staff. Probably I would have thought it would be more beneficial for you to have less to achieve more. I think you're really putting yourself under pressure with all these 6 priorities, because it's an awful lot of work in there. I just wonder how you felt about that, really. And I say it's no criticism; it's just an observation.
I guess the reality is that there's that capacity challenges are regular and frequent. I guess a lot of our work, though, is influenced and determined by the Welsh Government guidance, and that provides a bit of a framework. And I think experience tells me now, we probably wouldn't have said this 5-6 years ago, but the system is so interrelated and interdependent. So you change one part of the system, and it influences the other part of the system. So you can't ignore different parts of the system, because you will always get a blockage of some sort, which then has a ripple effect down the line. So I guess really that's our challenge. I will say that as a team we have been well supported by the council. The team is very, very different to what it was 5-6 years ago. We've probably just about doubled in terms of staffing across all disciplines, and that has made a difference, and making it easier to take things forward. And again, using Becky's post as an example, Becky's post was a new post that we were supported by Welsh Government, and from my perspective, I'm fortunate enough to be able to throw anything homeless related or strategic related to Becky, and we know we've got somebody that will take a lead, but also there's key managers working alongside Becky as well. So whilst it's not perfect, I don't think we're in a position to moan or complain, and we'll plod on as best we can. So
thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Penny, and then I know that Maureen wants to speak afterwards. So, Penny, do you want to come back in?
Yeah, just very quickly, Chair, just talking about the gardening project, Ian. You know, there was, when it was a residential and nursing home, they had a superb, Colin set up a gardening project, and they had an opening day, and it was absolutely fantastic. It really was. It helped people's well-being. It did such a lot of good to the residents and those involved. So, you know, you're very justified to think it would be, we could do something like that. Have you thought about asking voluntary groups, men's shed and places like that? You could even go down to you know, the local cafe or the Palmer Centre and ask the Font of All Knowledge, Margaret, there about who she could, you know, recommend to help. Because I know there are people out there who want to do things. They come to the Palmer Centre sometimes, and you know they're lost. So perhaps we could marry the two things together. Because this is really worth having. If they've got somewhere they can be proud of, you're going to have far less aggro you know, in the actual place itself. Although I realise there's not as much aggro as there used to be. But just a thought, Ian.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. I mean, to say no idea is a bad idea, and you know, I say whether it's gardening or any other activity, you know, you know, we're happy to explore it. So. So
Yes, I think anything that integrates Severn View into the Chester community is a good.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks.
Councillor Powell?
Yes, thank you. Just a quick one. Do you find that the children of these people that you have rehoused and homed, in turn, will come to you expecting the same service and treatment, or doesn't that happen?
yes, I would say there are examples of generational. What's the word? The next generation. You know, it can be a family scenario. Yes.
So they think, well, all right, they've helped us, so we can help us as well, and possibly.
I think
sort of jumping on bandwagon, so to speak, when really they probably could help themselves.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much jumping on the bandwagon. I think you've got, you know, we are working, as with lots of other sections within the council, they are working with high needs, you know, households and families. Some of them are very chaotic. Councillor Grocott will be aware of those through schools, and what you do find is that sometimes young people do get caught up in that chaotic behaviour, and that really goes back to the work that Becky's doing with social care, children's services, and looking to identify where we've got young people who might be starting to exhibit chaotic behaviour that could lead to homelessness, and seeing if we can step in, or somebody step in. It probably won't be us directly, but step in directly, you know, to try and head it off at the path.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to know that, you know, that they can help them possibly before they get to that stage. Thank you.
I think we see a wider social, economic issue, don't we, in the life opportunities for all young people who come from households which have housing assets, as opposed to those who are coming from households which don't have a housing asset.
Can I just say, I think we're drawing to a close now, so can I just say a big thank you to Ian, Rebecca, Lisa, I know you haven't sort of jumped in, but I know that you're there, and Sarah. It's been a really informative meeting. The reports were really, really sort of interesting, but also quite technical, and sort of lots of information in there. I think we've we've had a really good going over of where we're at now, where we've come from, and obviously with your sort of objectives for future work as well. So a big thank you from all of us. You know, I know that, and can you just sort of convey that to the team, because sometimes it doesn't sort of filter down. We're really, really grateful for the frontline sort of work that you do. I know that, you know, I've had people that are presenting homeless and you've been really responsive, but, you know, the frontline staff that day to day are working with people at Seven View and rough sleepers and on all the rest of it, really. So big thank you. So we're now going to move on to the rest of the agenda. So you can either sit there or you can leave quietly. It's up to you. Yes, okay, then we won't be long. All right, thank you. So the next, and item 5 on the agenda is the Council and Cabinet Work Planner. Is that just for Newton? Yes. That's just for Newton. We've got our own 6 is the People Scrutiny Committee Work Programme and Action List. Hazel's done a nice action list for us. So how are we got some issues outstanding? We've got a meeting. Do you want to just talk through it quick?
Yeah, I'll just talk through it briefly. We've got to provide, this is the 18th of June action list, we've got to provide a written response on the trauma-informed approach to reducing school absence. I'm waiting for that from officers. There were some other things on the strategic equality plan. One of them, the last one, was arrange a visit for Tudor Street. So I'll come on to that in a second, but perhaps, Chair, it would make sense to take you through the work programme as well. So if we look at the work programme, we're quite full now, right through to the new year. So the next meeting is the youth service. We've given that a single item agenda because, well, basically like today, you know, you've had homelessness today. We were trying to see if we could bring another report from Ian. Perhaps one of the members had suggested the housing allocations policy, but it's massive. It's huge. It's a huge piece of work. If we were to add that to today's agenda, we'd be here all day. And sometimes to do something justice, you need to give it a bit more time. So today's been quite a big topic in itself. So we were going to have the youth service come earlier in the year and present to us, but Josh was unable to make it. So when he comes in September, it will be quite a fuller look at the 5 years ahead. So that's a single item agenda. I've booked in a special meeting, but yet got to determine the date for November, and that is to have a look at the disabled adaptions. It's an external audit report. We'd need to possibly invite P&O to that one. And then an assistive tech update. We've looked at that recently, and you've asked for an age-friendlies update. So it would tie well as a meeting together for a special. But then the 17th of November, we've got requests to look at Dom Care. So I've put that in. We've got the Day Opportunities Service. And I think there's also coming into that, Chair, since the agenda's been published, there's now a Care Inspectorate Wales report to go on that. So that's going to be quite a full meeting in itself.
So would that be a joint one?
I think we'd invite P&O to that meeting, and I think there was a suggestion in the pre-meeting as well that possibly we want to extend that to all members because there's going to be quite a lot of interest in that one, Chair. So Councillor Howarth has mentioned to me the rural allocations policy, and I've talked to Ian about that. It would make sense to take that with the housing allocations policy, the two things together. The housing allocations policy will be due a review soon anyway, but we've yet to confirm a date for that. It might be December and we might need a special meeting. But yeah, basically we're looking quite full into the new year, Chair. Okay. In terms of the site visit, we did discuss some potential dates in the pre-meeting. There was Chris and Simon that weren't in that meeting, so I'll follow up with them separately, and we will confirm a date to go on that visit, probably sooner rather than later, but I wasn't going to discuss that here in this meeting, Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Hazel. So can we move on to 7 on the agenda, which is to confirm the minutes of the previous meeting? Can I have comments or accept them? Everybody happy with them? Yeah, thank you for that. So the final thing is to just say that our next meeting is on the 22nd of September, and we'll be looking at the youth service and reviewing that. So can I thank everybody for their contributions this morning? It's been a really interesting meeting, and see you all probably on Thursday. So thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.